Welcome back to the Entertainment Files. We're sitting here with the star of EFX, David Cassidy.
How are you, David? Thank you for being
Thanks for being
with
with us.
us.
My
pleasure.
We've been looking forward to it.
This is great. We're very excited sitting here in your dressing room.
Well.
And we were talking about it. It's actually amazing to me. I've sort of followed your career like everyone else. It's almost 3 decades. That's incredible.
It's a long time. It's 3 decades next year. Actually 3 decades that I turned professional. I had my first Broadway show in 1968, just out of high school. And I'd done a couple of pieces of work in the theater for the LA Theater Company, which is quite renowned now for doing all kinds of cutting-edge stuff. My last year in high school, and I'd been studying drama, and I went back to New York and took a part-time job in a textile company in the mailroom. And I was making $38.80 a week and feeling like I really reached a plateau, you know. I got probably, I think I went on, I figured it out, close to 200 auditions before I got my first professional job, which was in a short-lived show. And then from there, I came back out to LA and did a lot of television for a year, dramatic shows mostly, and then did The Partridge Family the following year. So I was 19 years old when I did that.
When did it first hit you that you were a star?
Well, I guess the first time somebody comes up to you in a bar and says, "Hey, I hear you're gay." You know, that's really the moment that it sinks in that you've done something right or wrong.
That great jealousy factor. Huh?
I think that's really, I stole that line, but I think it's absolutely true. I heard Dustin Hoffman ask the same question when he was a kid, and right after he did The Graduate, and that was, for him, the moment. And I've always thought of that. I think that's it. That's when you know you've really had an effect on people.
That's funny. Yeah. And so now the Partridge, what were you doing when you heard about that? Was it?
Well, I was an actor. Marcus Welby and Bonanza and all of those shows that I had done, which I received some critical acclaim and became in television a pretty hot actor, doing dramatic work, not doing any comedy, although I'd done comedy. And my dad, you know, was a very, very fine, honed comedian. I had no skill. I think I had a feel for it, but I didn't really have enough time to work on it. So it became a learning ground for me the first couple of years, how to deliver comedic lines, how to play straight. And most of the stuff I did, there were people around me playing straight, and I became a buffoon, and that became my character. There wasn't much of a character. I just was a guitar player in high school and bands, and I wasn't thinking about a serious music career, although I could sing, and I was usually the lead singer in all these garage bands and things. But it just happened that they knew I could play, they knew I could sing, but they cast me in the role of the Partridge Family solely upon my acting ability. Didn't matter to them. All the rest of the people in the show all lip-synced. So after I got the role in the pilot, and the pilot sold, and it was a really good pilot for the kind of show it was, they asked me if I said to the executive producer at one point, you know, if this ever goes on and like it becomes a show, I sing and I play. And in my screen test for the pilot, I played a little bit, and that was quite interesting. And I played some Eric Clapton thing from Cream or something, you know, because I was very much into that sort of, you know, cutting edge Velvet Underground, John Mayall, Jimi Hendrix. I saw him 5 times. Very different from the musical imagery that the Partridge Family had, or my records became. And the people that I got to work with, the fantastic songwriters that taught me how to write songs, changed my whole musical outlook on everything, opened me up to, you know, what really good pop and rock and soul and all of that stuff. Although I was a pretty big soul music fan in the 60s, because I got to see so many great artists, Marvin Gaye and Sam Cooke, and, you know, a lot of Wilson Pickett and a lot of those great soulful
great music.
artists. Yeah.
Great
You know, I have to tell you, when I was, I had a niece who came down to see you at Wembley Stadium.
At Wembley Stadium.
What year was that? That
1974. 3, 4. I played White City Stadium and Wembley Stadium 3 and 4. Yeah.
What a deal! And because I wasn't allowed to go in because I was a guy, so I had to drop off. I
Careful
went to
now.
a pub down the street and drank a Guinness, and I heard a roar that I have never heard a sound like.
Nor have I.
And that was when you walked on stage.
Yeah.
I'm just guessing. That
Well, just getting me in and out. In the end, the last couple of years, it was such pandemonium and chaos, and I had 30 people going with me, just security people, and it was a feat to get in and out of the venues and stadiums. I had to helicopter in usually and out, and that tour I helicoptered all over the place because they couldn't physically get me in and out. And going through that experience, and then after I decided in that last tour where I played White City Stadium and Melbourne Cricket Grounds and all these big Houston Astros, all those places, I decided it was time for me to hang it up because it had gotten so far from what I had started in it, which was as an actor. And I decided I'd go back to the theater some 4 years later, and I began working, having lost a total direction as to what I wanted to do, and had become something in terms of the business and the public's perception of what David Cassidy was not really what this guy was about. So I decided I would try and forget about whatever I had accomplished and do it just for the love of doing it. And therein lies the reason that I'm here in effects today, and having gone through, numerous theatrical and television movies and all that stuff, but that I'm still making records, that I just finished the first record I've made in 6 years, and I'm very excited about it. The single will be out in about a month.
this is with Dino, right?
Right.
So
Dino
you did
is-
this right here in Las Vegas.
Right,
Yeah.
I did it right here in Las Vegas. Dino is a really fine musician and producer. He and Scott Raymer, I've co-produced it with Peter Bonetta, and I reached into all of for me, the equity and the wealth and the good sense of who I was, and tried to forget about making records for anyone but me, and knowing that who my fans are out there, what they wanted me to do. But really making music that made me happy and feel good. And that's what I've done. I recut I Think I Love You, which is very contemporary. It's far different from the original version, although has the sensibility and the integrity of the song is still the same. And wrote some really neat stuff that I feel fits really well. And I sing it now, 20 some odd years later, from a different perspective, these songs. So it's pretty cool. I just finished it this past week, so we're pretty excited about the single. I Think I Love You will be out in about a month.
What's
And
your favorite part of that process? Is it in the writing? Is it being in the studio? Or
I've made 17 albums, and I'm somebody who really enjoys being in the studio. The writing process is usually very painful. I'm never quite satisfied with it. I think I'm satisfied in the end with what it is, but you can never finish. You can keep writing and rewriting and writing and writing. Thing is that I really think of myself now as a guy who I used to fancy myself because of all of the roots and the influences that I had, from the Beatles to Hendrix and Clapton and all of those blues guys. I'm not as good a blues player or singer as they are. I'm a much better pop singer than a blues singer. So although I'm influenced by that stuff, I think more of a soulful pop singer.
And of course, you're also a fabulous musical theater singer, as we're
Oh, thank
now
you.
discovering with EFX. In fact, we have a clip, but we're going to take a
take a
break.
look.
Before we do that, let's run that clip. great. Well, that was fabulous. EFX, so that's what you're really doing now.
That's what we're doing now.
And you know, I live in Las Vegas. I'm excited. You actually did something amazing this year. You won the triple crown with this show. You were voted the best all-round entertainer, the best show, and the best dancers. Wow, that's really something.
Really
It's quite a feat, and we are very, very proud of it here. I'm very proud of the fact that the MGM put their confidence in me and their money and their time and their energy behind what we did to accomplish that. We changed the show, the content of the show, from a story standpoint, from a dialogue standpoint, from a musical standpoint. 90% of it is a new show. And
It really is.
man, it's really exciting to do it now because it has a real connection with the audience. It's exciting, it's funny, and it's fun for me to do every night.
Well, it must have been a little daunting following Michael Crawford's footsteps, and yet I have to say it is very much acknowledged within this town that the show turned around when you came in.
Yeah.
I mean, I know you know this, and everybody knows it was a show that was there, it was working, but you came in, and suddenly the reaction was tremendously different. Now, what do you think? You mentioned a few of those different directions,
Yeah.
and you sing live, right?
Yeah, I do. I like singing live. I think it's important. It brings a different sensibility and a different character to me and the show. I mean, I've been a guy who's done so many theatrical performances and pop and rock and concerts, etc. You know, to integrate all that and to do comedy, it's what I do best. And I said to them, look, I can go and do this show if you want the way you have it, but do any of you really like it? And they all stared at me, and I said, well, then let's do something that we all really like, and let's take advantage of what I do best. Let's craft it around what I can do, and let me show you that what's great about it will stay great, and we'll bring the rest of the level up to it. And put a whole new spin on a new character to it, so that people will come out, and, you know, I want them clapping and standing and hooping, and I think that's what it comes. People want to be entertained here. You know, you have a lot of trouble doing real story and book. I think Broadway musicals in general don't usually work here because the spectacle is what people expect. This show has more spectacle than anything ever created.
And how do you explain that magnitude to people? I mean, the special effects, the music, the cast, there's so much involved in EFX. How would you explain it to someone that may not be familiar with it?
It is the biggest theatrical production ever created. It is the most spectacular show ever created, and I would dare say ever will be attempted. And it's a feat, a miracle, that it works every single night. And when you put $50 or $60 million into a production, you can expect to see something that spectacular. I don't know if anyone will ever invest in a musical, in a hybrid Broadway musical meets the biggest show that's ever hit Las Vegas meets movies, because the 3D movie that is in this piece, it's only 2.5 minutes long, is a brilliant piece of
It's incredible.
cinematography. Yeah.
You sometimes, you know, the audience, I imagine, those, they just want to reach out and grab what's coming at them.
And oftentimes they do.
Yeah, we
Sometimes
have to-
it's my foot.
Can we look at another clip?
Yeah.
We've got to share this with
Yeah.
everybody at home.
In the light and the window, and the power of your dreams, let it shine, shine on you. You got the power to make it come true. Let it shine, shine on me. I need you to help me. You gotta help me believe. I love you, God bless you. I found my dream today. The effects, I hope you found yours. Good night.
Well, that was EFX. What you did now, but you've got other things that you're doing. I'd like to talk about that for a moment. I
yeah.
know you're involved in a new project for Fox.
Right. I produced a television series. I created and co-executive produced a pilot, which became a series called Ask Harriet for the Fox network. I'm somebody who has another television project in development. I have another theatrical show that I have in development. I'm a creator, and I think that I've been very lucky to have a career that has spanned and done as many things and been successful at it, both as a songwriter, as a musician, as a singer, and as an actor. And you know, people ask me, what is the thing that you enjoy doing most? And the answer is always, whatever I'm doing and I'm having the most fun doing. And if it's not working, I can tell you, I'm always thinking, let's see, if this doesn't fly, I can probably do that again. And that's why I think I've had longevity in that respect. Probably the biggest reason is that I think I retired and left the business, and I think the perception was, well, his fans just don't care about him anymore. And the amazing thing is that I have always had a really very loyal following, and I think that now in the last 7 or 8 years, having played 800 performances of Blood Brothers on Broadway and all over the United States and in the West End of London, and then coming here, you know, millions and millions of people have seen the work I've done now in the 90s, and having had a hit album and hit record in the 90s, it's a whole new career for me. And I guess it's recreating yourself, but I'm just doing the things that I love to do. And it's really a genuine representation of David Cassidy, as opposed to, gee, we saw this guy, he was playing this part on TV and he looked real cute.
Very multi-dimensional for them to see.
Yeah.
You know, we've got something we do with every guest. You better explain it.
That's right.
Sean.
Every guest we ask, if you were stranded on a desert island, what 5 movies would you bring? We find this says a lot about people. And we like those guilty pleasures, too, because you're going to have to watch these movies again and again.
Yeah, that's right.
Wow. It's a very difficult question because there have been so many phenomenal films. I think it would be difficult to put one on the top. Casablanca would probably have to go #1 for me. I think The Godfather is a masterpiece. I think the long version of Once Upon a Time in America is a great...
One we're both very fond of.
I
Very much
love
so.
that movie. An obscure little movie that I think is just brilliant is Blood Simple.
Oh, the Coen
I
brothers.
Yeah, the first Con. I love that film. And I think probably the last one is a difficult one. I was thinking about, you know, if you had to throw it in, you had to have one more film, what would that be? Would you put a musical in there? Maybe. You know, would you put Funny Face or something you could just watch a stare? I think, you know, I was going to say the George M. Cohan story because I loved Cagney, and I did a musical called Little Johnny Jones, which I took around America in the early 80s. The last one, I don't know, I'm going to have to just throw it up in the air. And
Guilty pleasure time. You haven't given
All
us
right,
a real
we'll take
guilty
one of those.
pleasure yet, David.
Melvin and Howard.
Oh, that's
Oh,
an
very
interesting
good.
pick. That's a new one for us.
That's
I
right.
love that movie, and I think that it's has the kind of sense of humor that Jonathan Demme, who is a brilliant director, I guess I'd have to put that up there. But
Oh, good
you know,
calls.
having seen so many great movies, it's so difficult to choose 5. But I probably could watch those 5.
I love
over
the
and
fact that you clarified the long version of
Oh,
Once
yeah.
Upon a
That's
Time
right.
in America.
Oh,
over. Oh
You
no,
have to
the
make
short
that-
version is like I can't watch it.
No, but that is an amazing movie.
An amazing
One of the
You know,
most
speaking
textured
of movies, there were so many. I remember watching The Partridge Family, all of the great movie stars that used to
Came
guest
in.
from Richard Pryor to Jodie Foster. Any fond memories or an anecdote from anybody?
Farrah Fawcett was originally
Jacqueline
on that
Smith
show.
got
all of
started too.
Oh yeah, I mean Lou Gossett. I mean, if I could just name the actors that came through there, some of them went on to become huge stars right after or were on the verge of it. I mean, Jodie a year later was a huge movie star. So I would have to say Richard Pryor was probably the most interesting guy because of who he was and who I was at the time. I had heard a couple of his albums. He wasn't a big star yet, but he was a cult star. And to me, he was one of the purest artists, the most pure artists that I ever known. He spent time listening to this really interesting African music that I came into his trailer and hung out with him one afternoon, and we just talked about life and about being an artist. And he didn't know me from Adam. It was the first year I wasn't a star either, but he just talked to me about who he was, and he was this. I thought he was such a beautiful person, and so funny and so brilliant, and I was so happy for him when he became so successful. And still, to me, to this day, everybody that in that genre, Richard is the guy, and everybody else stands second to him, in my opinion.
His comedy was so
agree.
brilliant. As are you. It has been, I know
Thank
you
you.
have to go on stage,
I
do
do.
2 shows tonight.
Yeah.
We want to thank you very much
Thank you.
for joining us.
Thank
Pleasure.
you, David.
And when you're in Vegas, this is the show you have to see. If you do not see this show, you have not seen Las Vegas. That's what they say, and
Miss
it
it
is
and you
really
miss Las
true.
Truth in advertising.
Thank you. We're going to be back with video pics right after these messages.